Hello and welcome to On the Bench. I'm your host for this episode, Brendan Sonnone. I'm joined by Zach Blostein, Chris Nee. 0-3. See, it rhymes in the ACC. It rhymes again. That's a three-peat. Wow, it's really a great way to start this. Yeah, FSU has dropped its third game in a row, falling to Pitt 34-31. And what we thought going into the game was a pivotal contest in the Mike Norvell era. Also feels like a tipping point. I don't know if there's any way around it at this point for us to discuss it other than that and probably get into the big picture outlook rather than the granular in-game stuff. We'll talk about some of that today, but I think mostly this is more big picture from here on out as you're midway through the season at 3-3. Shoulder shrug for those of you only listening and not watching. Before we get any further, shout out to our sponsors. You need it this season. Chattanooga Whiskey. You needed it for a lot of seasons. That's the cool thing about Chattanooga Whiskey. Versatile, malleable. You can use it to celebrate. You can use it to drown sorrows. Do so responsibly. But in all seriousness, Chattanooga Whiskey does an awesome job crushing it in the craft distillery game. Everything they do is either unique or really, really high level. Everything they do is good. I mean, I don't know how else to tell you. Like, try their stuff. Many of you have. You've enjoyed it. Thank you for the support. It's a legitimately awesome product. Speaking of awesome products,
the Turner Group.
You guys are good. You're on it today. The Turner Group. Colin, Amy Turner. I only did one sorry Colin last week, but it was a big one. Let's try to do none as I do this ad read here. It's not really a read. I'm not reading anything. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, which is part of the issue probably. Sorry, Colin. Damn. One. Colin and Amy Turner do an awesome job in the home buying, home selling market throughout the state of Florida. Yes, based in Central Florida. Like if you're, what? I have do not disturb on. Don't text me, Mom. Anyways, sorry, Colin. If you're in Central Florida, like meet up with Colin, do a meeting with him. If you're in the home buying process, he can help you get where you want to go. But they are well constructed to help you out throughout the state of Florida. Resources all over. Different agents in different states or cities within the state. So Colin and Amy Turner do an awesome job. Really good people as well. Sorry, Colin. 3. All right. 0-3. FSU falls to in ACC play. And I think that's kind of the starting point for us guys, is this was a big game for Mike Norvell. You couldn't afford to drop it. I think most of my friends who are FSU fans are pretty rational ones. And all of them are out at this point. Like every single one. I don't know any single friend who is in at this point. And I think that's the most damning thing is the most rational FSU fans I know are done and discuss. I mean, that's where this is at.
You're 5-13 since the beginning of last season. You've lost 8 straight ACC games, and you've won 1 ACC game in that stretch. Like, yeah, that's where people are.
Yeah. I talked to this fan after the game when I was covering recruiting, and like this is someone who goes to all the games, home and away, and is like always super positive about the team. And like even he was seemingly out on Norvell. And yeah, I mean it's wild. College football is wild. I can't believe we're at this point, considering how this season started. Like the roller coasters of it all have been insane. But yeah, I agree with what you guys have said. I mean, this is, we talked about before the game. Everyone talks about before the game. This one being massively important towards, what Norvell's future at Tallahassee will be. And obviously it panned out the way it did with a lot of the, similar mistakes that we've seen Norvell teams make that caused them to lose this game. And yeah, I mean, you read the Knowles 24/7 message boards, you read Twitter, any place you get, FSU fans coming together and talking about this team. And it's very hard to find people that are still in Norvell's corner at this point.
Yeah, Saturday was an important game, and everybody around the building knew that wasn't some grand secret. People within program boosters, they voiced that, in conversations leading up to kickoff. And it was even talked about by players and coaches during the week last week. It was understood. They didn't respond well. They didn't answer the bell, and they played poorly. Defensively, they were atrocious. Desmond Reed did whatever the hell he wanted, whenever the hell he wanted against them, and a freshman quarterback carved them up, both with his arm and with his feet, and Doug Campbell in his first ever road start. It's just not allowed to happen. It's not one of those things you sit there and you put up with. And Yeah, people are tired of it. I wrote on Saturday evening on the message board because I didn't want to write a column that echoed a lot of what Brendan wrote in his. But the general sentiment I've gotten from people in talking to them is that they're fed up, and I get it. That's where we're at as a program. Is we've invested a boatload of money in facilities, in coaches, and in players, and they're not any good.
Zach and I were talking yesterday, and he brought up the question. Hopefully, this is okay, Zach. For
Yeah.
you okay. I should have asked beforehand, but he asked, "Has any coach in modern football done less with more over the last 2 seasons than what Mike Norvell has done?" And my first reaction was, no. My other programs have more resources in Florida State, but not not a ton more. Maybe a dozen or so. And Zach, your correction was the results of it's not that you haven't maximized what you have, it's how poorly and how far that gap has been from what has been invested in you.
Yeah, you screwed up 2024 roster royally, and it's why you went 2-10. And it doesn't appear that this roster is constructed in a manner that's going to allow you to be something that exceeds general expectations. And by general expectations, I mean my kind of expectations, which was an 8-4, 7-5 type of football team. You're not going to probably exceed that at this point.
And even that, this is not a second guessing type of thing. This is something that we said on record before the season. 7-5, 8-4 is still not acceptable. It's not, and you're unlikely going to reach it. Real quick, I do think about this a lot. It is our job to point out or outline, I think, if we think something is going poorly, how can it get turned around? Or if something's going well, we have high expectations. Some people thought that there was an outline of the 2024 season of if it went poorly, this is how it could go poorly. We never thought it'd be that poorly. But I think that is our job, is to explain, hey, if something goes contrary to what we think is happening or going to happen, this is what it could look like. If it were to get salvaged, like this season, long term, can you guys even begin to fathom what that would look like?
You saying essentially if they went out?
Is that what it would be? What would make you feel?
Or only lose one more, I guess.
What would make you feel?
It would have to be like a 2022 type season.
I don't. Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
We keep hearing that comparison. It would be remarkable if that happened at this point, just because of what they've put on tape and what the last year plus has been. Considering, we can't forget last season. I know everyone kind of wants to I know, everyone is bringing that up now, obviously, but I think that factors into all of this, obviously, because last season was so beyond unacceptable for Florida State football that if I think all of us pretty much agree that if the money made sense, they probably would have made a change at head coach after last season, going 2-10. But obviously Norvell's buyout is massive, and that's why we're still talking here about his program in Tallahassee.
52 million right now, if it were to be done this season or thereabouts, and that could be paid out in increments throughout the duration of the contract. But just some people would be interested in that.
Sorry. Yeah, if they can somehow turn this into a 2022 season where they lose 3 straight games and then win out the rest of the year, sure. It's not a overly challenging schedule remaining. You don't have a single, I don't think, a remaining ranked team on the schedule. Obviously I understand how this team's playing, especially defensively. I'm not going to pick them to win many more games besides maybe this weekend at Stanford, but who knows?
16-point favorites. How bad is Stanford?
They're bad.
Yeah.
They're very bad. But you never know. FSU's going to have to go play a game across the country at 10:30 at night. And I think they're traveling to California the day before the game, is what I've heard, which is crazy to me. But anyway, yeah, it's going to have to be that type of turnaround for everyone to kind of flip script on what the season has been.
But even then, would you still trust?
No, that's where I land. I'm at the point where I just don't care anymore. It doesn't make a difference to me. I don't think they're recruiting out a clip that's good enough to turn into what the program is supposed to be.
Zach's preach.
Well, I want to bring something up.
I don't think the coaching is good enough to get it where it needs to be. They have shown who they are through 6 years with the inconsistencies of what the program is, barring 2023, which was an exceptional year. Other than that, this is who they are. They have 5 out of 6 years where this is what they are.
Chris, just because your voice carries weight here, it's not a weight joke. It's just it does carry weight. You're done.
Yeah.
The way you're okay.
Yeah, I was disgusted by Saturday. That defensive performance and the coaching of the defense was atrocious. The job done by Terrence Knighton with the defensive line was awful. Tony White failed to do his job effectively. And to his credit, he owned that yesterday, and I appreciate that. I like Tony. It's not personal with anybody on this staff for me. I like this staff. I like the people in the building, and I hate the idea that they might lose their jobs. I don't like that for people.
Yeah.
Never have liked it for most. Even Jimbo at the end, and he didn't lose his job. He decided to walk out the door. I don't want people to lose their job. I'm not that kind of bloodlust kind of person. I'm just at the point where I know what FSU football is supposed to be. It ain't gonna be that under Mike Norvell. That's where I'm at.
And I think so. Like something, I think we talked about this on the last podcast, but like sometimes, like let's say FSU does have a strong finish to the season. Sometimes, in addition to that, like if we're talking about Norvell potentially saving his job, like you look at who they're bringing in, right? They don't have that marquee quarterback that's coming in this class that could potentially, give fans and boosters and the investors to this program some hope for what Norvell can do in the future, right? You don't have. That's why we made a big deal about a guy like Keyshawn Henderson, the 5-star quarterback committed to Houston, that had briefly planned to take an OB to FSU over the summer, because he's the type of prospect that if you bring in, like, Norvell can potentially buy himself some time. And regardless of that, the most likely outcome, we all believe, is that this season is not going to go well the rest of the way, for the most part. I think can win a few more games on the schedule, but like, does it matter at this point? Like Chris is saying, like, I think we all viewed the Pitt game as truly the mark where like that it was a must-win game. Like you needed to win that game. And I just, it's unfathomable how poorly the defense has played. Like
They've progressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is there's film in the world and teams are picking on the film. Like there are specific things being done. Elijah Herring, for example, Blake Nicholson, for example, that are being done that are specifically because of things that have been put on film. Virginia put a lot out into the world, and it's been exploited the last 2 weeks. One by an excellent team in Miami. Go ahead and clip that, Miami fans. And the other one by Pitt, which is a middling team who plays really hard and is well coached by Pat Narduzzi, but it has no special talent really outside of maybe Desmond Reed offensively and those two linebackers on defense.
I mean, the way they made that freshman quarterback look, just athletically. This dude runs a 5.
Time and time again. 3 of the 5 longest runs for Pitt were by the quarterback.
Dude, he had 60 rushing yards and was sacked 5 times. Think about that.
15 explosives, and he had 13 of the 15.
60 rushing yards with 5 sacks for a guy who runs a 5 flat 40.
Yeah.
That is the part that is not acceptable.
Space, they can run to it. It's not real hard. When you have 2 guys spying and they both go the wrong way, well, hell, you're cooked.
And 2 guys shouldn't be spying. I think like there's an element. You look at some of the stuff historically over Tony White's tenure in Power 4 conferences too. This isn't like he was coaching at a G6 level or whatever. Like at Syracuse, at Nebraska, just the tackling numbers at Florida State this season are the worst that have ever been in his career.
Missed tackles, correct?
Missed tackles, yeah. Like that's awful. So the pass rush numbers are awful. I mean, it's a talent issue, and in part, Tony White does get blamed for that. Like they thought they could fix a lot of these things. And that was, I think, the part about the Alabama game that was so fun and refreshing is you realize in that moment, because we all talked about going into the season, the defense is what scared us the most because of the allocation of roster.
Yeah, that and the O-line depth.
But just to collect, like the defense was scary. And then
specifically the D-line.
And the pass rush, and they overachieved against Alabama, and we're like, oh man, that's kind of what this defense is supposed to be, is something that can allow you to work around deficiencies. And if you thought that was somewhat sustainable, like there was reason to be encouraged by it.
Yeah, Bama felt like they maximized their top 16, 17 guys on defense, and they played to the tip-top level. Justin Cryer making great plays. Cryer had a horrible play against Pitt. I'm sure he'll own that single play, and it's a single play, but it turned into a 30-yard gain, if I recall correctly. Jerry Wilson's progressively gotten worse with each game, it feels like. I thought he played better against Pitt than
I think he was fine against Pitt.
Virginia, but he's had some really bad moments. But he's supposed to be cornerback one. Jabril Rawls, I think he got hit for one of the big ones passing game wise, but in general, I thought Jabril played his backside off.
Mm-hmm.
Earl continues to struggle, and he's just such an important piece of the defense based on where he is aligned and what he has to do. But your linebackers have been horrendous.
The linebacker, and we thought the linebackers would be the steadiest group of them all. They don't have three they can trust.
They thought they'd be their steadiest group. They talked about it that way.
They talked about the linebackers from
4 or 5
day one.
guys that were relatively interchangeable, pretty comparable, and all decent, and would be able to execute the system.
And so, I don't blame AJ Cottrell for giving up an arrow route or whatever that's not on him.
God didn't like him as much as he likes Desmond Reed. The reason he's out there is he actually knows where he's supposed to be, and he's good at executing.
Which is a huge in year 6.
Not doing that
in year 6. This is where we're just in year 6. You are playing what is the extent of a walk-on linebacker, starting level snaps in the second half because you could trust him. To be in the right place, and you couldn't trust other guys.
In at a far higher level.
And it's and what are we doing then?
Which comes back,
and also
why
the same guy coaching?
Out there for the love of God.
The same guy coaching. Hang on.
Sorry.
The same guy coaching the linebackers, also coaching the special teams, and it's not a personal thing. I like JP personally, but day one, Mike Norvell talked about. When he got up there and he did his introductory press conference, go find it. The backbone of his football program is special teams. And your special teams keeps letting you down time and time again this season specifically. And it has not been the amount of time they spend on it, the amount of energy that they spend on it in practice, the time they spent talking about it. It does not equate to anywhere near the level of success as it should. The blocked punt, the onside kick attempts are just impotent. I don't know what the national average for an onside kick, how many times you do an onside kick. You should get it. They're 0 for 4 this season. And it's just the way it looks too. It just doesn't look good.
Doesn't look competitive.
The false start saved you from what looked like a really ugly fake punt that you then put on. So you can't do that.
They just didn't block 2 guys on that fake punt.
And you're not good in the punt return game either.
And this linebacker class is going to have 3 stars. None of them have hyphens in their name that I can think of, but at a certain point, that's the administration and above the administration, power players, people who got a lot of money, donate a lot. This just can't be it's Florida State guys. And you run the risk. And I think that's where I think of it big picture. It's you run the risk of it not becoming Florida State after a certain period of time. You just allow this to fester. Mike Norvell's ACC record is what it is. It's a game above 500 if you take out the weird 2020 season. If you don't want to do that as part of the exercise, and it's several games below 500. Year 6. It's not acceptable. And it's not that it's all front-loaded stuff either. The last 2 years, your ACC, last year and a half, your ACC record is abysmal. I want to echo Chris's point. I like Mike. Of all the head coaches I've covered, by far the one I get along with the most, and just find him to be the most normal human being. And just it doesn't. That's not our job to talk. It doesn't.
Results-based business.
All businesses are, but very few have the trickle-down effect through their local economy quite like college football does. That's in nth percentile.
We saw that on display on Saturday, by the way.
And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
So the point I was making would bring up Magic Mallory's name. Nothing against the freshman, but
you talked about Magic Mallory. I was talking over you that much. I didn't even hear that.
I was talking over you. I think technically, honestly,
it was.
That's fine when someone admits it.
I couldn't hear what either of you guys were saying.
It was in addition to the point of the linebackers, where you're playing depth that isn't the type of talent you need to have to make up for when you have a bad day at the office. Offensively, they reached a point because of injuries with Deuce Robinson, Squirrel White, and I'm forgetting a third one here. Sorry. Morning.
Javon Boggs.
Yes, Javon Boggs. Thank you. That you had Tayshawn Gelsey, and Tariq Magic Mallory out there a bunch. I think Mallory played 20 snaps, for example. You basically quit being a passing team down the stretch in a game where you're trying to make up a lead because you didn't have good passing options, because Deuce Robinson, who's been your crutch, and Randy Pittman, who's been your blanket, were both unavailable. And suddenly you couldn't do it. And like, to
This is
me,
Tiny Tim.
that screams like you have not recruited enough talent and depth to make up for it. And we know that's true at positions. We talked a hell of a lot about it in the preseason about the wide receiver position and definitely the O-line.
The amount of money they spend at tight end too. It's like you lose your starter. Listen,
Hey,
I don't want to play like any team uses any team. That's what I do to my dogs when I'm trying to get their attention. Anytime you lose 3 starting wide receivers and a tight end, like the offense is going to change drastically. To me, the most alarming part of that, Chris, was Elijah Moore, who was a big win for them on the recruiting trail. Has been talked about as someone, and we've seen like in practice last year, like what is there. He got jumped like in the snap count by Matthew Mallory.
19 yards. Elijah,
a dude who got here in like a month before fall camp from the land of like pizza is getting more snaps than Elijah Moore. Like, no, it's not acceptable. It's not okay.
All of this is that you're building paper thin rosters.
Yes.
Where the depth just isn't adequate, the talent isn't adequate. And when you get yourself into a pinch of you need to be a good 2 deep football team, you're not. And because of that, you lose. It's like B-Mac and Bud had that 15-minute tangent on CBS Sports. And I thought B-Mac made some good points and certainly passionate points. And Bud brought up talent, and some people push back on that. I think B-Mac's points are more important. And for defense, it's about effort. It's about giving.
Yeah, Bud, B-Macs are more important.
No, but it's about taking to the coaching, doing what the coaching is asking. Also, coaches putting in position. Bud's point was that I also don't think they're a talented team, and he's right about that. But the talent is, do you have enough to make up for the margin of error? And they do not. And they showed that abundantly against Pitt, in my opinion.
Which is what Zach wrote.
So one thing that I wrote today about how recruiting issues have kind of been, in my opinion, the primary reason that's plagued Norvell during his time at FSU. I don't think that's really debatable at this point. But something I see brought up is like, well, it's not recruiting issues that have you losing to Pitt and UVA. I'd argue it's and they bring up how it's coaching issues, and like, yes, 100%. That 100% factors into it. Like, the coaching was not good. Like we talked about that, especially defensively. But the fact that like you can't trust the linebackers that you brought in enough to where you're having to put a former walk-on to cover one of the most dynamic, hybrid athletes in Desmond Reed in the country. And this was something that, when Cottrell got put into the game, I literally texted in our group chat talking about the game, and everyone, I'm sure, said the same thing, that like they're going to find a mismatch with Desmond Reed on AJ Cottrell.
And before then, we were also calling for you got to play Cottrell because he knows where he is too, and like that's the double-edged sword of when you don't build a roster that is well-rounded or you hit on enough. That's not good enough. I just gonna keep going. It's just not good enough, guys.
Zach, I think the third thing people would bring up in your conversation here is the allocation of funds, or that it costs a lot to get good players now, which it certainly does. I think FSU's biggest issue is allocation of funds. The return on investment on so many guys is piss poor.
I don't like. I mean, allocation of funds. Like I'm on record as saying like I don't think they've taken how the landscape has changed in the last year quite seriously enough to build themselves to a legitimately like elite roster. And Miami has taken it seriously, and they have.
Are you saying in the sense of spend and spend and spend more, or
you got to keep
spending? I think Chris is talking about the misallocation.
Well, and that's what I was going to say.
I agree with you, Brendan. That's certainly a point. You're allowed to protect Miami. I don't disagree with that. My point is more so if you are spending X amount of dollars, you better make sure you spend them in a very wise manner.
Yeah. We're saying the same thing. That's my
really poor job of that the last 2 years. And it's why you're top loaded as a roster. But if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and this is what you get.
Even in 2023, guys, like, and they were the first to market with that, and they nailed a lot of those. They found value all over the place there. But there was a lot of things on the bottom end of the roster they didn't spend well on. It was just hidden. It just wasn't magnified because you have the dudes to make up for it. So it just hasn't been good.
Yeah, and the reason why all that stuff gets highlighted even more is because you don't recruit well. So you don't bring in enough talented depth to the point where, like, when you do miss on a James Williams, when you do miss on a Jason Jenkins on the D line in the portal, it's catastrophic because you have no one behind them that can step in and
I mean, thank God for the Desir brothers. Like that hit, and that was like them kind of they get credit for getting the Desir brothers, but like there weren't a whole lot of other Power 4 programs there, and they weren't in on the Desir brothers until late in their senior seasons too. So you get credit for it.
Kudos to Randy Shannon. I think that's the reason why that happened, by the way.
That's not
should have had him coaching the D line
the entire time. Just trying to gather my thoughts. Let's talk about some of the things that the coordinator said. Like the roster construction stuff. It's just, we've been talking about it for years. It is what it is at this point. And that's where when you look at the big picture of it, and that's bringing back to the point of like, what would make you, is there anything that exists that would make you feel better? And I do want to put ourselves in the position of like, what if you end up winning, 5 of the last 6 years? Like, how would you feel in this season? We all feel better about it, but you'd also still have this like long-term like dread of like hopelessness. And that's where I think when we get to the big picture, guys, of like where the program is, where it's headed, which doesn't feel great, the amount of money, and you look at, there was a part where I parked my car yesterday to go to our press conference, and we know what they've spent on the stadium. And I walk over and kind of just chuckled and shook my head at like, they're about to move into this, eventually going to move into this football only facility. It's there. It looks pretty. It's just looming. It's massive. And it's like, oh, these guys may not even get a chance to reap the benefits of this. And I was like, of course, that's where it's at. But it's like, also there's the amount of money spent on it. And here you are, you got Pittsburgh, which plays in a rented frickin' field.
Bad field at that.
A shitty, maybe the worst field. And it's like, and you spend all this money on lawyers, and you win, you get the edge in the ACC court battle, and basically saying this conference ain't shit without us, and you're just mid in the conference. Talking to the coordinators yesterday, I did find that Tony White was honest. I thought I do feel like he shouldered a lot of the blame, some of it unnecessarily, like some of it's not on him.
Yeah, I thought the whole thing with, he talks about that play where Jaden Jones doesn't make the sack, and
Deontay.
Deontay McCray.
Talking about the one where he threw it and looked like he was kicking his legs out back.
It's
crazy.
So Desmond Reed catches the touchdown. To me, that sounded like it was a position coach deal, and not like, I think he said that he signaled down to get a change of personnel, and then
too late.
Didn't Norvell have an interaction
based on the sideline watchers? I didn't see it, but there's enough people who saw it to where Mike and Terrence Knighton. I don't know. I was going to say got into it. I think got into it would imply that it was back and forth. I think it was just Mike kind of barking at T-Nice the way people talked about it.
Yeah, and then there's that clip of Norvell leaving the field and having what seemed like a stern conversation.
He gave him a pat on the. Mike seemed pissed. I don't know. I saw that clip. I don't know if I felt that way about it, but regardless, Mike's not happy with how the defense played, and he shouldn't be. Like, there's no reason to. The defense of coaching staff isn't happy with how they played. Just the talent is the talent, and Tony White talking about scaling some things back and lowering some of the amount of sub packages they're using. It's like, okay, then you're robbing Peter to pay Paul there.
Yeah.
But anytime Chris and I've done this long enough, when we've covered a defense that says we're going to start simplifying it, when Harlan Barnett said it in 2019, it was bad. When Charles Kelly couldn't talk to us because Jimbo Fisher wouldn't let assistant coaches talk to media back then. Everyone forgets Jimbo was kind of surly at times. But his players were like, we're going to do more man-to-man defense. That's why he came to Florida. It's never good when you start scaling it back.
The reason why I think Tony White scaled it up in recent weeks is because of the lack of pass rush. He's been trying to generate that through different packages. He talked about that in the press conference, how they started rolling in Ashland Barker as their linebacker to cover Desmond Reed, and then having an extra blitzer because they were only blocking 5 on those plays when they released the running back. And they were having a free rusher, not getting home. So, like, now we're just going to go back to having traditional, sets and just letting guys, play in a traditional scheme like that. That didn't work either.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword of it. Again, when you start, sometimes when you're in a really bad situation, you start thinking about the different ways out of it. Like, none of the solutions are good solutions. They're just the best of bad solutions. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now with it. It's like legitimately your linebackers don't know how to cover.
You're led in sacks by a safety who missed 2 games. Like, yeah. It's a wrap. We're good. They're not any good at all 3 levels on defense. That defense is atrocious. Like, I rewatched that Pitt game, and I don't know why, because I knew what I saw the first time. And oh my God, how bad can you be defensively in a game against a team that's basically trying to play bully ball and once in a blue moon take a relatively intermediate shot, majority of the time to the middle of the field, because you're giving them.
They killed the middle of the field. It's just,
they ate it alive.
Yeah. And that's where, like, I'm even just looking at the eval process. Like, whenever Florida State has seemingly gone down in this regime, when they've had to go down to the second or third tier of their options, they generally really don't do well there. And listen, there's programs like, you look at what Georgia has done. Like, yeah, we know that they're drafting dudes, but they hit on their 3 stars at a really high rate. I think the idea of it being, I know everyone's got a theory on it being a development issue. I think it's a Clay issue, not a Clay Fink. Shout out Clay Fink. Happy belated birthday. I think it's a having the clay to mold type of issue with Florida State. I think they consistently misevaluate the personnel that they've brought in. And if it's not at the very top, when it's at the very tippity top, you're able to be like, yeah, Keon Coleman, good player. Let's go get him. Cool. Like, I can look at that and without the training and be like, yeah, that's a dude to go get. Jeremiah Smith, let's go get the generational wide receivers. Like, what happens when you have to scale down? And I go back to, I think it was the 2022 cycle, and they talked about, I wish I had it right in front of me. They talked about how after that class, they like, oh, we hit and got, I think 7 or 8 players at top of our board at their respective positions. You go through all 7 or 8, whatever the number was. Miss. And so I can't think of guys who have been recruited out of high school, have left the Florida State program, and have gone on to have excellent careers elsewhere. There's some examples like Dennis Briggs did well but he also wasn't recruited by this staff out of high school. He was inherited. Byron Turner's done okay at Tulsa. I mean, 3 of those sacks are against FCS teams. Some of the guys they got in the transfer portal last year are doing well. Malik Benson, Tommy Wadurja.
You finally bet on them.
It was not an untalented team last year, what they got with the transfer guys. They got a lot of really good athletes. They had those data points. It just didn't work well together on that end. But as far as the contributions from high school guys, and I will keep saying it, it's just not good enough for the amount of money you spend on it, the resources that have been poured into the program. And as we go into the big picture of it, real quick, one thing, did you guys get any humor from Gus Malzahn's presence? How many times he mentioned he's in charge of the offense yesterday? Because I thought that was funny.
Definitely made it a point to, like, someone, I think Aslan asked the question about something about
application.
Things not applying from practice to the game. He's like, you're talking about the offense, right?
Point
like, okay, the Gus bus, throwing the defense under the bus.
It was like, I tried to ask him because of his experience as a head coach, and I was thinking about, like, what have you talked to Mike about? Just what advice have you given him? Because that's kind of why he was brought in as partially his mentor figure. But I asked him if he's been in this situation before where the expectations got really ramped up early in the season because of what they'd done on the field and then results, and have you gotten out of it? If so, how? He's like, I've coached a long time, probably. Okay. He's like, but my job is to coach the offense. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically, it was like, I want to focus on the offense. So, which I would too if I were him. Like, the offense has performed well. Like, the fact that they scored 31 against that Pitt defense with the limitations they had, Yeah, Gus has done all right by me. He's exceeded my expectations, honestly, of what they've put together on offense. But yeah, I thought that was funny. The Mike Norvell black eye, 'cause people keep asking about it. This is what we've been told, is that he was taking his briefcase or computer bag, whatever, out of his truck and got caught in something, ricocheted up and hit him in the eye. Like, of course, this guy had a fire alarm going off with the 0-3 start or whatever it was to Memphis, and here you drop 3 games in a row, and there's a literal black eye. Like, I just, of course, just weird things happen to Mike. Big picture, college football landscape. We're 30 minutes in. I don't have a whole lot else to say. There's not a whole lot more else to say, I think.
We need to ask the question now or later.
For Mike?
Yeah.
So that's what thank you, Zach. That's what I was going to get into. Was James Franklin just got fired just at Penn State. Similar buyout level to Mike Norvell. I'm not sure if similar amount of years or not, but whatever. Similar buyout. They were helped by Chris, help me with the shoe company. Was it?
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, is that fake? Did I get duped?
You might have.
I think it was an actual, like, someone trying to report, but people have come out saying it's not true.
Right.
So
regardless, someone is coming up with the money to be like, hey, this dude who just won 2 playoff games last season.
On College Game Day 15 days ago, basically.
He was on the Final Four last year and a play away from making
college football is crazy. Like, think about where Mike Norvell and Kalen DeBoer were after game 1, and now where they are. And the twist of all that, and as we get to what Mike Norvell's contract is, and is because of Alabama too. It's like that job became open. You were petrified. I do believe that Mike Norvell was seriously courted, and I don't think that was just a posturing thing. But I'm also only reporting on the FSU perspective, and if you think FSU got duped, then you think FSU got duped. Regardless, you sign him to a long-term extension, a lot of guaranteed money. Said it earlier, it's about $50 million or so at this point. Gets into the 40s next year. I mean, it's just you have that to consider with the amount of money you've already spent, but you do have a tipping point of, like, is it more expensive for us to, or is expensive the right word? Like, is it more affordable for us to keep him or to part ways with him? Because what Zach mentioned,
benefit analysis.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you're at. Is the attendance is going to get lower, boosters are going to pull out, people are going to get sick of it. I think you had your last stand, like this offseason when you got rid of your coordinators. I think that already existed, and you made the moves you made. I think we're all on record as saying we didn't think it was enough from just a talent acquisition standpoint, just how you structured everything. We just didn't think it was enough. That's now proving to probably be the case. But really, the damage was done years ago too. I mean, the damage was probably done after 2023 when the snub happened, the emotional fallout of that, of players, do they trust Mike Norvell or not? Not to his fault, it just happened. I think he probably lost credibility there. And then to have the 12th ranked class after that season, the brand damage, all that happened in that fell swoop in that month or so. And I think the damage is done. Anyways, do you make the move now or not? Penn State's in the market was my point.
Wisconsin probably enters the market.
Florida probably
potentially enters the market. Yeah. There's several others. Arkansas is already out there, obviously, on the market. Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Virginia Tech.
UAB. Maybe Jimbo gets his dream of coaching UAB.
Finally. So my point being is, of the 6 programs you guys listed, I think 2 or 3 of those probably could body you a little bit. Or at least
Penn State's not making that move without being willing to spend enormous amounts of money for whatever's next.
So they're getting the top there. I would assume Florida would probably, just given where they're at as an institution, would if they open up, would have more than you to offer. And so you're already saying you're probably getting your 3rd or 4th choice. Well, that may not be true, but in terms of you're just looking at the coaches that are available, you're not cherry picking, I guess is my point.
The financial part of it certainly is true. Yeah, you're getting into a crowded market that's going to be expensive. And this isn't to say I don't think they should make a change. My concern is, who do you hire? Like, you got to really nail it. Everybody wants to nail it. But, like, with the financial investment that's happened here, the financial cost of if you were to make a change, you have to nail it. Like, who is the person that you can go get that you can do that? Some people would throw out Curt Cignetti. Certainly has earned the right of that kind of clout with what he's done at Indiana and prior gigs. Phenomenal job. But I think he's in his 60s.
He's 64.
Yeah. So, like, you know, I don't know. Like, and I don't know that Curt Cignetti is in a rush to leave Indiana necessarily.
Yeah. It's been reported that they have a lot of funding there. And it feels like if he did leave, I mean, Penn State's open, right? Like that's probably their first call.
Indiana's defensive coordinator, I was just looking up because it's hot port season. That dude, I forget his name. He's a badass. Like, everywhere he's gone, any defense he's coordinated has been a legit like top 10. James Madison, Indiana, they overachieved with him.
But is FSU at the financial cost of all this out to hire a coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be someone that you think can step in and really be, you know, not only like I don't know what to think about like coordinator head coaches anymore. I don't know if that's the right move considering how the sport has changed and what you need from that position on your staff. But yeah, I mean, someone like Glenn Schumann comes to mind for me, just, you know, from a recruiting perspective. I've just crossed paths with a lot of recruits who have, you know, talked him up as a really good recruiter. I need to look more, you know, into him and just how his defenses have performed. But
pretty good.
He kind of reminds me of Dan Lanning a little bit.
Mike Norvell also was a really good recruiter as a position coach and a coordinator too. So he doesn't know.
But what is like what level of recruiter are we talking about? Like, he was at Arizona State.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
What big time battles is Arizona State involved with?
I mean, having, I think, someone who has an idea of how to recruit at the highest level and been part of
That's
a
my
elite
point.
recruiting
Yeah.
operation, I understand that being super appealing. It probably should be part of the equation, if not one of the first things you actually look at. But in terms of like the timing of it, I think is where we want the conversation to be, because there's probably going to be time to talk about candidates like eventually, and just the timing of it, like financially, like I think you can't afford not to at this point. Is probably where it's going to land. And maybe you can get through the rest of the season, and but then you're entering the market. It's just like none of it's good. None of it's good. Then you're entering the market late. Also, then you have to consider, like, is the athletic director going to make this hire? Is the person who extended him to this contract, and like I don't blame Michael Alford for doing it at the time. You couldn't lose Mike Norvell to Alabama. If that's what your belief was. The idea of just getting snubbed because of Alabama and then losing the head coach there, that with the optics of that and where your program is would have looked awful. You never saw this fall off happening. Like, even in their worst seasons before the 19-game winning streak, you didn't see 2 wins. Like, that wasn't a thing that anyone could have foreseen. But at the same time, like, his name is on it. He did make the move. And so it's like, that's another thing to consider is, are the boosters, are the board of trustees, is the president of the school, are they okay with handing the reins over to Michael Alford to make what becomes a critically important hire? And yes, he's done really well, I think, with the majority of his hires. Which you got, Chris, you pay more attention to the Olympic sports than I do. Like,
Yeah,
he's hit most of them.
Yeah, he retained Lonnie Alameda, hired Brian Penske, hired Link Jarrett, for example. I think Luke was the right hire for basketball, especially considering the parameters of what that program has to work with. Brooke was sort of like the no doubt after Sue departed as far as the women's basketball coach hire. You know, he's retained a majority of the coaches of the other sports that you want to retain. Volleyball is what it is. They're in a dilapidated facility that has very little to no investment. So, like, that program is sort of just left on its own.
You can't be great at all of them.
But yeah, I don't think there's a hire you look at and you go, man, that was an awful hire that really, you know, like, set them back or did a negative. Yeah. I don't think there's anything of that sort.
The big move that set them back is the most important one.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing to consider in the timing of all this.
But there's like, obviously that contract brings up a ton of discussion. The biggest issue with that contract is that FSU has stunk since that contract happened. Yeah. But there was like no maturity rate to the contract. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a progressive downgrade. It wasn't like FSU went from 10 to 8 to 6. Mm-hmm. They went from new contract to 2. Mm-hmm. And like that very rarely ever happens. I don't know of another case that's ever happened actually in college football where
Or
someone,
saying 2 years in a row, new contract.
yeah, just where they immediately got a new contract and it was an atrocious product immediately. Like
Oh, okay.
I just can't think of that. So, like, I get the discussion of the contract, and yes, it's an enormous sum of money. I'm not like disregarding that. It's just more like there was no maturity. Like usually this happens 3 to 4 years into a contract more often than not. And there's been some maturity to the contract and you're able to move on. Penn State's a wild situation because, I mean, they were a playoff team last year and they decided to move on because of a 3-game losing streak, including back-to-back atrocious losses versus the spread, 2 20-plus point spreads that they lost to, and a coach who seems like a cantankerous dude who I think had kind of run his course there. So my grand point of all of that is just that, like I get the blame in quotations for Alford for the contract, but like it was what the market sort of demanded at the point. Maybe they could have structured it a little differently, shorter with more money per year type of thing, but it would still be a hell of a lot of money 2 years into that contract, any which way it was cut.
Yeah, there was no one that could have predicted what the fall off was, but I do think that there were some signs that things weren't as good as the 2023s and
I think that's fair.
Suggested, and I think those were kind of overlooked.
And it's also fair to say if you're making that level of financial investment, you
better look into
sort of allowed to be overbearing towards the program with regards to the way it needs to be operating, what needs to be done. Yeah. And maybe that oversight hasn't been to the level it should be.
There probably should have been staff changes alongside his extension that season, in my opinion.
And I was always told when the extension happened that there was an investment in NIL that was supposed to happen with that. And I do not know if that certainly has happened. But the financial investment in players leaves a lot to be desired since that contract happened.
Relative to your peers.
Right. And relative to the idea of putting a successful product on the football field.
Yeah. Zach, title is not good enough. I mean, I think that's just where I'm at with it.
Another job that could open, by the way, is Auburn.
The SEC office is doing their best to help that cause.
But the idea of going into 2026 in a lame duck season just is not appealing to me.
That would do just so much harm to, I mean, I know us as a business, but like I saw what Tallahassee looked like. I've been to the Miami game, the Alabama game, and the Pitt game. And I understand it was a noon game, and noon games are always, going to be not as well attended and tailgated. But geez, man, the town was
Jeez Louise. I will give like fans credit. Like the stadium was
not
pretty
full. Yeah, they showed up for
there's a different energy around town, and so people even come up just to not even go to the games, just to be part of like the tailgating and stuff. Like when it's big, it overflows here, and yeah, that's only going to get worse as the season goes on. And bearing you winning out every single game and sneaking into the playoffs and having some sort of like incredible goodwill that you built back up with, it's always going to be peppered from here on out. Like it just will, and unless Mike Norvell were to do that and win a national championship, it will always be peppered with distrust. It is what it is at that point. Like, but even if you did all of that, like that's the only way you could probably look at 2026 as being palatable. And that's like, I'm not saying it's a devil's advocate. It's unlikely to happen. What are we doing?
Kicking the can down the damn road.
But to Zach's point, like it is really bad for our business. It's bad for businesses all around town. It's bad for Florida State's business. Like it's bad. So everyone's understanding that. And that is the reality. And we saw how dejected Mike Norvell was after the game. I thought Michael Alford looked pissed walking into the press conference room. He should be. I get it. He doesn't normally look pissed. He looked pissed. He looks stern. Maybe it's the better word for it. Like, yeah, it's not a good situation. This is unacceptable. Anything else, guys?
I think we
did I say anything to get myself in trouble, Chris?
I don't think so.
Okay. Chris said it's fine, so it's fine. I always feel better when I get a stamp of approval from Chris.
We got to do Beyond the Bench where you give everyone your real thoughts.
I do think we're going to have a roll cast coming up this week. So those
Ooh.
24 subscribers, you get that exclusively. Yeah, Trey and I talked about him. It's time to let him loose, let him go. So expletives and all the thoughts that come with it. All right, guys. Sticking the landing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Brendan Sonnone. Zach Blostein, Chris Nee has been on the bench. We'll talk to you guys later.
Sorry, Colin.